Bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? All right, guys. I'm not gonna sing the song. My name is Brandon Keith Avery, and this is just my opinion. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in to my opinion/review for Bad Boys for Life, Bad Boys 3. I really do appreciate it. And if this is your first time finding me and you want more movie reviews, trailer reactions, me responding to entertainment news, television recaps, or anything I think is cool, please right now click on that subscribe button and also the bell so you can be notified when I make uploads and you will be on your way. Bad Boys for Life is a film that I was really looking forward to. I love the first two films. I got them right here on Blu-ray, Bad Boys 1 and 2. It's unfortunate that they never did release this on 4K because I would have bought the hell out of it. But this is one of my most anticipated films of 2020. And while I was excited, I was also scared at the same time. Well, what do I mean? Well, this film is not being directed by Michael Bay, who did direct the first two films. And until Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen, he was my favorite director. This film is being directed by Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah. And if I butchered the pronunciation of those names, please forgive me. But I will say that Michael Bay does have a little bit to do with this film. You'll just have to see it yourself to find out. But these two directors, I've never heard of them before. They both directed some Belgian films by the name of Black. They came out in 2015, Gangster 2018, and Breeders in 2011. Haven't seen them, never heard of those films. If you have before, please leave a comment. So going into this movie, I was excited, but I was also scared. I'm like, wait a minute. How you gonna have Bad Boys coming back and you're not gonna have Michael Bay as the director? This dude is the king of action, Bayham. He is known for just blowing things up. You seen Bad Boys 2? He directed that highway chase scene. In my humble opinion, one of the best highway chase scenes in all of film history. And he's not coming back. I'm scared. And you know, this has been in pre-production hell for the longest. This Bad Boys 3, this Bad Boys for Life. I mean, Martin Lawrence announced back in 2013 that they've been going into production and this has been delayed upon delayed. They couldn't get a director. I was wondering what Michael Bay was doing. Everybody was. I mean, we also had Joe Carnahan who was supposed to direct this film, but he dropped out because the film was just being delayed so much. And so I just did not know what was going to happen. I did not want them to just make another cash grab, you know, just for the fans and things of that nature. I wanted a great story to finish off the trilogy or continue on the story for part 4 all the way to part 9, if you can tell it. So I just wasn't sure. And then it's been 17 years since Bad Boys 3 and 25 years since the first one came out in 1995. So I just wasn't sure. I just really did not know what to expect going into this movie. But what is it about exactly? Well, the Bad Boys, Mike Lowrey and Marcus Burnett, are back together for one last ride in the highly anticipated Bad Boys for Life. They both have to confront new issues, career changes, and midlife crisis as they join the newly created elite team Ammo of the Miami Police Department to take down the ruthless Armando Armas, the vicious leader of a Miami drug cartel. So let me just go ahead and talk about all the good things that I liked about this film, because there are a lot of good things. The first thing I love about this movie is as soon as it starts off, this feels like Bad Boys. Okay, we got Marcus Burnett, Mike Lowrey, and they are back with all their characteristics, their personality, their mannerisms, and it seems like, you know, it hasn't been 17 years. It feels like Bad Boys 3 came out just a few years ago. Mike Lowrey, Will Smith's character, he's driving fast cars. Martin Lawrence is in the passenger seat screaming, hollering, acting his silly self, and I loved it. So immediately, as soon as the film started off, you are thrown back into this world and it feels like we never left, and that's just a great way to start the film. Another great thing that I loved about this movie is I felt that it was much more mature than Bad Boys 2. Well, what do I mean? Well, the Bad Boys 2 came out in 2013. 3, and I was about 18, 19 years old. So, of course, I had a different mindset back then. I remember seeing it at the theater with my parents, my brother, my mom, and my dad. I thought it was great, and I've seen Bad Boys 2 a number of times. But in particular, I remember watching Bad Boys 2 like literally 10 years after it came out at home. And I was saying to myself, while I still enjoy the film, it just seems just so silly and unnecessary with this R-rated content. All 3 of these films are rated R, but as far as the profanity and the crudeness, they did dial that back just a little bit in Bad Boys 3, Bad Boys for Life. I mean, now you still have, they do still use profanity and they still use the F word, but in Bad Boys 2, I just kind of felt like they were just throwing out MFers and the F word just to sound cool, just like F this, F that, da 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 da, completely unnecessary. And I have no problem with profanity because I use profanity in real life. Sometimes I cuss in my reviews, and I probably shouldn't for a while to honest, but I do. And I do not mind profanity or cuss words in any walk of life if it's natural, if it's genuine. And I felt in Bad Boys 2, it was just a little bit over the top, but that was not the case with Bad Boys for Life. Now, the next thing I loved about this film is it is freaking hilarious. I mean, I was laughing my ass off throughout this whole movie, especially coming from Martin. I mean, his comedic timing is great. We know him as being a comedian, whether it's in the movie, his Martin show back in the 90s, or his stand-up comedy. The guy is funny. Some people think that he can be over the top. Not me, but he was very, very funny in this movie. And not just Martin. I mean, everybody else was as well. 95% of the time, the jokes landed. Everything was great. I'll talk about that other 5 to 10% in just a little bit later. But as far as the comedy, I was laughing my ass. It wasn't just funny. I wasn't just laughing. I was literally laughing my ass off from beginning to end of this movie, and everybody else in the theater was as well. Another thing that I love about the Bad Boys franchise is that Marcus Burnett and Mike Lowrey, when they're in the Miami PD, the TNT Tactical Narcotics Team, and I believe that was picked up in Bad Boys 2, they're always beefing with their counterparts, with their co-workers. They did it in the first film, they did it in the second film, and they're doing this in this film as well. I remember specifically in part 2, they was going... It was a Hispanic descent, but he's like, hey man, why you always gotta go racial? Why you always gotta go racial? They had all that going on back in Bad Boys 2, and they have that as well. It's new characters with the Ammo team, and in the trailer, in the movies, Mike describes them as a high school musical boy band with guns, and it was funny. I loved all the banter going back and forth between the characters. I thought that was great. I thought it was clever. There's something that they've always done, and so I like that they brought that back as well. Now, another thing, this is possibly the best part of the movie for me, is early on, is the relationship between Mike Lowrey and Marcus Burnett. It was really tested in this film. I mean, the dynamic between them two was really, really compelling. And I was really surprised because I was saying to myself, whoa, wait a minute, are we getting some Oscar-worthy performances out of these two actors in the Bad Boys movie? Okay, come on with it. Let's do this. I mean, seriously, early on in the film, I mean, the relationship between Mike Lowrey and Marcus Burnett and the way that it was just tested, and, how their friendship could either be built to the strongest it's ever been or be broken. It was the best in all 3 movies. Okay, so because this film did do something or some things better than the previous 2, and that right there, their relationship, that acting, I was like, wow, this is, especially Will Smith. I'm like, bruh, I mean, he can act. Everybody knows Will Smith can act. But that's just not something that I was going into Bad Boys expecting. I'm just going in here to just see a buddy cop movie with some great action and a decent story. So when you have great acting to complement it, and I'm not saying that it was just throughout the film, it was just this particular scene here to where, Will wants to go this way, Martin wants to go this way, and, they're at a crossroad, a fork in the road, and just seeing how their relationship is challenged. I actually said to myself, wow, I can't believe this, and, I got to give it to them there, or the directors, the writers who brought this out of them, because it was a pretty powerful scene in my opinion. Also, the story in this film, we know what was spot on as well. It wasn't predictable early on. They kind of threw a wrench, in the gears to kind of twist things up and kind of led you on with your expectations into a sense of, just things that you would not see coming. I mean, I was like, oh, okay, y'all are really going here. I don't think y'all are going to go here all the way, but, this is something that definitely was not in Bad Boys 1 and definitely was not in Bad Boys 2. So I just have to give them credit there, for delivering something to us in the story, that we just really was not expecting. It just kind of like came out of nowhere just to keep things fresh and not feel that we're getting the same thing over and over and over again. Now, as far as the villain is concerned, it was a dangerous villain. The villain is pretty dangerous in all films, especially Bad Boys 2, with Johnny Tapia from Cuba. Early on, they always have these scenes to where they're killing someone, blowing their head off, or, just kind of something like that, just to kind of show how evil and sinister they are, just how big of a badass they are, and that they're just a force not to be reckoned with. That's the exact same thing in this film right here. They kind of cheated a little bit, and I'll get to that later, but I kind of said to myself, okay, man, they're up to their necks here with this villain right here. They cannot mess around. Y'all need to take things seriously, because if you slip, you're going to get your head blown off, and that is something that I appreciate, in my action films. I don't want the threat to be weak. I want him to be strong, and, want him to come through as just someone that you're supposed to be afraid of. And they knocked the ball out of the park with that one as well. There are also a lot of cameos and returning characters that come back from the previous films as well. Not everybody came back that I did want to see. Some of them, some of them, they're just going to come back. Okay. There was one character that did not come back, and that was just a little disappointing. They did have a line or two of dialogue to kind of address that, but I don't know if it was a scheduling conflict, money, or anything. Who knows? I wish they would have come back, but there was one cameo that came back from part 2, and they was kind of sprinkled throughout the plot, throughout the story of the film. And as soon as they popped on screen, everybody just bust out laughing like, oh, I remember this said actor right here. Everybody just started laughing. There's also another cameo that I was able to pick up immediately. I don't think everybody else will, but if you're really big into films, you're gonna pick it up immediately. And I thought that was great. Another character that pops back is Joe Pantoliano, played by Captain Howard. I thought he was great. He's always about to blow his head off through frustration, and Mike Lowry and Marcus Burnett just like, guys, like, what are you doing? Da, 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 da. Because they're always blowing something up, and, they're supposed to be going in and be soft and, tactical with the acronym of TNT, but, they're always blowing stuff up. So he's always frustrated and kicking and doing woo-saw, and like in part 2, Marcus is like, Captain, you just called me a tick. And he was like, I was referring to him. Or that was kind of dialed back at me. I was like, no, I want Mr. Captain Howard, to come back and just start screaming. And he did all that. It was funny. I thought it was great. Just another reason why I thought this film was hilarious. And something else that this film did better than the previous 2 films is the score that was composed by Lauren Boffey. I thought that was great. Best score, best music, and all of them, especially early on when I was just talking about the Oscar-worthy performance, in that particular scene between Mike and Marcus early on in the film. It really came through. I really was feeling the soundtrack. I was feeling the score. That did raise it up a few ticks in the ratings area, if you want to ask me. But as far as the story overall, I mean, like I said earlier, this film is taking place 25 years after the first film, 17 years after the third film. And so they've been doing this for 25 years. And people outside of the film have just been saying, okay, Martin, Will still looks like he's in shape, but Marcus doesn't either. Going into this film, I was kind of worried that they was going to play on the trope too much of Lethal Weapons 4, of, we're too old for this shit. And, while that was part of the plot, what's great is it actually fit. It actually made sense into the story. It was cohesive. It wasn't shoehorned in or annoying or anything like that. Like I said earlier, Martin wants to go to the left. Will wants to go to the right, and then they're at a crossroad, and it's like realistic in real life. If you're in your career for 25 years in a physical demanding role, a job, a career, you're not going to be at your prime, 25 years later. You're going to slow down. People do get older, and that actually worked into the film, and I like how they infused that in. Now, it did kind of come and bite them in the rear end towards the end of the film, and I'm going to be talking about that right now. So I just talked about all the good stuff, guys, but let me talk about some of the bad. And it has to do with what I just did with, especially with Mr. Martin Lawrence. I really felt like they emasculated his character. Okay. I don't understand why they would do this. Early on, when they did it in the film, they had a perfect opportunity to redeem his character, for him to come through and be somewhat of a badass, but they just didn't do that. He was kind of ragdoll in this movie as far as the action is concerned, and it was just really, really disappointing. And I don't want to see my brother go out like that. Now, if they do have a Bad Boys 4, which I hope they do, and if this film is successful at the box office, they will, because they did possibly leave it open for another sequel. They can fix it easily. I'm not a writer. I've never written a screenplay, but I can come up with something in a story point that could take care of all of that. But that was really, really disappointing what they did with Martin Lawrence's character, and emasculating him. And it really did make me upset. The next thing that I didn't like is, while I thought the villain was great and threatening, I do not like the way they wrapped up the story. Okay, they kind of made it too personal, and that's just, I don't want to say anymore because I don't want to spoil it for you there. But when it came to the ending of the film, I was just like, really, is this what y'all are going to do with the villain? Okay, I guess. I guess you had nothing else to do, or I don't know. The writing just didn't come through for me, in this particular arena of the story, of the plot. But while the villain was threatening, I just didn't like the way they wrapped up the story. And the last thing is the most disappointing thing about this movie, guys, is the action. No, man, guys, I don't want to just say the action was weak in this film, but it just wasn't strong. Okay, it was really, really disappointing. Now, I really did enjoy the film. I love the characters. For the most part, I love the story. In all of that, it was funny, like I said, but that's one of the main things I went into this movie to see, is the action. And and you may disagree with me, but in my humble opinion, you do not need to make a sequel to a film if it is not going to be as good or better than the films that came before. And I don't know what they were thinking, but the action in this film did not come remotely close to anything that did in Bad Boys 1 or Bad Boys 2. And I'm just sitting here waiting throughout the whole movie, like, okay, I'm entertained. I'm loving the film. Not liking the film. I am loving the film. But where's that action? Okay, that action scene, that was cool. Maybe they're just teasing us. Okay, another action scene. This is kind of decent. Okay, another action scene. All right. That's cool action scene. But when are they really going to give it to us, beat us over the head with explosions everywhere, guns blazing? When are they going to give it to us? And then when things start revving up towards the end of the movie, I'm like, all right, here we go. Y'all better give it to me. I want this strong action. You got to make it up, because Bad Boys 2 was fire. As far as the action, it went down. In this movie, it just did not go down. And when you have Michael Bay as the director for part 1 and part 2, who is known for some of the biggest action in Hollywood, you got to come with it. You have to come with it, and they didn't come with it. I don't know what I want to blame, whether it's the experience of the directors or the budget, because the budget for this film was $90 million. The budget for Bad Boys 2 was $130 million. But at the same time, the budget for part 1 was only $19 million. And yes, films were much cheaper 25 years ago, and they're not using a lot of CGI effects and things of that nature. But come on, man. If you look at Bad Boys 2, in my opinion, today still, it has one of the best highway chase scenes in all of film cinematic history. If you disagree, that's fine. Leave me a comment below and let me know why. Now, as far as highway chase scenes, that comes in part two, comes in second place is like The Matrix Revolutions and Lethal Weapon 4, and I brought that film up. You know, great highway chase scenes, but I mean, you saw Bad Boys 2, they're throwing cars. Don't you think I see that? I'm trying to dodge these motherfuckers. You know, you know what I'm talking about. They had the scene to where they're in the pink house, and they have the signature shot of Michael Bay's camera zooming around in a circle. I mean, it's just at the very beginning of Bad Boys 2, they have the TNT, the Miami PD taking down the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. Bodies are exploding galore everywhere, and there is nothing like that in this film. I mean, at the end of Bad Boys 2, you have Miami PD, the DEA, TNT Tactical Narcotics Team, and the Marines versus all of Johnny Tapia's goons and the Cuban army. I mean, it was World War III in Cuba on the beach. World War III in Cuba. You get what I'm trying to say. But it was carnage everywhere, bodies everywhere, explosions everywhere, guns blazing everywhere. And it was, God damn it, it was this, it pales in comparison how weak the action was in this movie compared, and it don't even have to be as good. It was like, come on, man, can you even at least try? Can you just, like, I don't understand how they signed off on this. Like, okay, you know, here's the script, okay, and yeah, the action is just as good as Bad Boys 1 and 2. There's no freaking way, man. There's no way. I don't get it. I don't get it. I bet Michael Bay was just pissed off as hell, like, oh, the action sucks. I should have came back. Yes, you should have came back, Michael Bay, but no, you wanted to do 6 Underground, which it was a film that I enjoyed, but my goodness gracious, Michael Bay, you were my favorite director in all of film Hollywood until Transformers 2. After that, I don't know what the hell you started doing, because the rest of those Transformers films sucked. But I have never in my life missed Michael Bay so much. He was needed in this film. It's just as far as the action is concerned, okay? I can pass on rats having sex in part 2 and Transformers testicle balls and, you know, silly stuff like that. But man, the action in this movie was lacking. And, you know, I was disappointed. I left the film disappointed as far as the action is concerned. And one last thing, guys, I almost forgot as far as the negatives are concerned. Earlier, while I said the film was hilarious and I laughed my butt off all the way through from beginning to end, I did say 90 to 95% of the time the comedic timing was on point. However, there were just some points, especially with Martin Lawrence's character, Marcus Burnett, that they were just a little too jokey in times where the film should have took itself seriously. I've always said in my action, I want the action to be taken seriously and feel like these characters' life is on the line. And when you're throwing jokes into these moments, it kind of just waters down everything and dilutes it. At one point during the action at the end, I said to myself, really? Why are y'all joking now? This is stupid. And that's just another gripe that I have about the film. But guys, I still really did enjoy the film, okay? I thought it was great. And I was still don't mind going to go pay to see it again. Okay, so I'm not saying that I liked the film. I'm not saying the film was good. The film was great. It really was a great film, and I really did enjoy it. But I would be lying if I said I was satisfied with the action, because I was not. And it just sucks because that was one of the main things that I was going into this movie to see. But at the same time, you know, it just didn't kill my vibe because I went in with mediocre expectations, kind of knowing that the action was not going to live up to those standards. So if I had to rate Bad Boys for Life out of a 1 out of 10, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10, a 7.5 out of 10. And I can say, guys, that it has to do with those 3 bad things that I talked about. Of course, the emasculation of Marcus Burnett, Martin Lawrence, the wrapping up the story of the villain in the action, but mainly it goes to the lack of action. But guys, that is just my opinion. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. If you liked the video, please go ahead and give me the thumbs up. Also, please subscribe to the channel. Help me reach 20,000 subscribers in 2020, the new year, the new decade. Also, guys, look me up on social media, please. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's right there at the bottom of your screen. And I also have links in the description and the pinned comments. All you got to do is just click on the link and then click the follow button, and bam, you're helping your boy out. At least help me reach 1,000 followers on Instagram. But guys, again, I just want to thank you so much again for tuning in. And before you go, don't forget to always chase your dreams, because I'm chasing mine. My name is Brandon Keith Avery, and that's just my opinion. Peace.